I've been a long-haul truck driver for a while now. I run reefer most weeks, dry van when they can't find me a cool load, and I do pretty much whatever route pays the bills. People think it's all open road and podcasts, maybe a pretty sunrise thrown in. There's a lot of that, sure. But there's also the weird stuff. The stuff you tell your buddies at a diner at 3 a.m., then go quiet for a while because it sounds like you're making it up when you're not. I never posted about it because I didn't want to sound crazy, and because I still have to run that stretch sometimes. But I'm getting older, and enough guys have swapped stories with me about the same patch of highway that I figure I might as well put this out there. Do whatever you want with it. Call me a liar. Call it fatigue. All I know is what I saw and heard, and what it did to me after. This happened on a run from Amarillo to Reno, meat headed west, tight delivery window, and I had to cross a couple lonely roads to make timing work, including a state route I'd only been on once before. If you do this job long enough, you develop a sixth sense for roads that don't like you back. This one never liked me. Long, straight stretches that lull you into thinking there's nothing out there. Then 2-lane passes where rock walls crowd you, and the guardrail looks like an afterthought. No shoulder in spots. The kind of road where the mile markers start to feel alive, because they're the only thing moving besides you. It was late October, cold enough that you could see your breath when you stepped out. The day was bright and empty when I left Amarillo, and I had a good tailwind for a while. The reefer unit hummed behind me like a big cat. I packed jerky, a couple energy drinks, and one of those gas station breakfast burritos that tastes better than it should, and worse than you want to admit later. My dispatcher didn't say anything weird when he assigned me the route. Just keep it moving, Matt. This one's tight. The first day was fine. Not much traffic. Some scenery. A rest area with a vending machine that took my dollar and took it personal, which somehow annoyed me more than it should have. I slept at a truck stop that night and woke up feeling like I'd swallowed a handful of sand. Nothing unusual there. I did my pre-trip, banged on the tires, checked the lights, checked the seals on the trailer doors, and rolled. It wasn't until I got onto that state route that it started. You know how the CB can be dead quiet for hours. Then for 10 minutes it's nothing but 3 guys talking about football, and one guy with a sense of humor stuck in 1997. That morning the CB was quiet. I was on 19. No chatter. Just that soft hiss and the occasional pop when someone elsewhere keyed up. I passed mile marker 229, then 230. I remember those numbers because a guy in the truck stopped the night before had told a story about the 230s, like they were a bad neighborhood in the middle of nowhere. He said it casual, like he was joking. Watch the 230s, he'd said. Sometimes they're longer than they should be. I'm not the type to chase ghost stories, and I've heard every version of haunted mile markers you can imagine, but that line stuck in my head for no good reason. A couple miles after 230, I saw a pickup on the shoulder. Old Ford, primer gray, hood up. The driver had his legs sticking out from under it, boots dusty. I slowed, checked my mirrors, and thought about stopping. There's a rule about stopping out there. You do if you can. You don't if it looks wrong. It's not always easy to tell which is which. I was maybe 2 truck lengths away when the guy slid out from under the hood. He didn't sit up. He just slid. Like his belt loop had snagged on something and he'd been dragged. Straight out, on the gravel, onto the white line. Then he stopped and lay there, eyes open, mouth open, staring up at the sky like he'd never seen it before. I was already past him by the time my brain caught up and said, "That wasn't normal." The mirror showed me the pickup with the hood up, the guy halfway in the lane, and a dark stain spreading under his head. It looked like oil if oil could crawl. My hand went to the brake, then didn't. I wanted to tell myself it wasn't my business or it was a setup. I also wanted to tell myself they'd get a trooper out there fast because of the way he was lying in the road. The CB hissed in my ear. No one said a word. I told myself I'd call 911 at the next spot with service. It's stupid, but sometimes you make deals like that with yourself out there. I drove on. My hands felt too big on the wheel. My eyes kept going to the mirror like I expected to see that guy sitting up and sprinting after me. He didn't. The pickup got small and vanished behind a low rise. I passed a sign for some town I'd never heard of. The map said it had a diner and a post office. On the ground, it looked like a boarded-up grocery store, one church, and a dog lying in the sun, acting like all of this was a dream he didn't ask to be in. I found a bar of service just before mile 236 and called it in. I gave the dispatcher the rough location. She said they'd send someone. I felt a little better after that. I used my turn signal for no good reason. I took a drink of coffee that had gone cold and wished I still smoked. I don't anymore. I quit when my daughter was born. But I still think about it when my jaw tightens up like that. There was a way station near mile 241, just a little pull-off with a small building and a digital sign that says open or closed, depending on whether some guy inside wants to have a day. I've never seen it open. That day, the sign said, open. I've always hated being told to get on the scale by a building that looks abandoned, but I eased off anyway and rolled the front axle onto the plate. The red light turned green, then back to red, like it couldn't make up its mind. I waited. Nothing. No voice on the intercom telling me to roll forward or back. The little building's door was open a crack. The wind moved it a little. Inside, I could see a desk with a coffee mug on it. The mug had a smiley face that might have been made with a Sharpie. It sounds stupid to say this about a mug, but the smiley face looked tired. I tapped the horn. Just a little beep. The intercom crackled. It kicked to life like I'd startled it from a nap, hissed, then a voice came through. Not on the intercom, though. On my CB. "Driver," it said. "You're good. Get rolling. Don't hang around." The voice was a man's. Old smoker's rasp. Not in a hurry. I looked at the intercom speaker on the building, then at my radio. I hadn't keyed anything. I hadn't asked for permission. My mouth was dry. I shifted into first, eased off the brake, and rolled. The green light blinked, then stayed red again when I was almost off the plate. The digital sign flickered and read, "Closed." The door to the little building swung wider for a second, then back to the crack it had been at like someone had put a foot there, and then changed their mind. I almost talked back. I almost said copy or 10-4, something to prove to myself that I wasn't just imagining it. But I didn't. I rolled back onto the 2-lane and watched the way station disappear in my mirror and felt weirdly like I'd gotten away with something I didn't even know I'd done. The next hour was quiet. The road bent and rose and cut between low hills that looked like animal backs sleeping under a tarp. The sky went that high, cold blue that makes you feel like a pin stuck into a map. I passed one car going the other way every 10 minutes or so. Old stuff. Square bodies. Hard to tell the colors in that light. Then the reefer unit hiccuped. If you drive a reefer long enough, you know the sound your unit makes like it's your kid's cough. This was a hiccup like it had swallowed wrong, followed by a steady, low growl I didn't like. I glanced at the temperature display. It was nominal, but the sound put me on edge. Then something knocked from inside the trailer. Just one thump. Not like product shifting. Not like a load lock falling. It was like someone hit the inside wall of the trailer with an open hand. I checked the straps in my mind even though I'd checked them in real life that morning. Everything had been tight. Nothing should have room to move. Meat boxes stacked on pallets, wrapped tight. The seal on the back door was intact. I would have seen it if it wasn't. I told myself it was the road. Expansion joint bounce. Bad patch. I was talking inside my head in the same tone I used when my daughter was an infant, and I had to convince her the thunder wasn't going to eat us. Then the CB popped again. Same voice. "Driver," it said. "You hear that?" I didn't touch the mic. I didn't say a word. I looked at the radio like it was a person who just winked at me across an empty room. No one else said anything. No laughter. No prank. Not even static. Just that sentence. About 10 miles later, the road opened into a short valley with 3 houses set back from it. All the houses were the same design, different colors. Each one had a flagpole with a faded American flag hanging limp. It looked like they were frozen in a picture from 20 years ago. In the yard of the middle house, a man was mowing in a slow, wide circle. He was pushing the mower, thick forearms, ball cap, jeans. The mower wasn't running. The blade wasn't spinning. He wasn't cutting anything. He just walked the circle with the mower like he had to keep it moving or something bad would happen. As I passed, he looked up at me. Our eyes met for a second. There was no expression on his face. Not anger. Not confusion. Just this flat, practiced stare like he'd seen trucks pass 1,000 times and none of them meant anything. I didn't look back at the houses. I didn't want to. The road curved, and I kept both hands locked at 10 and 2 for a few minutes, even though I usually let one drop by then. When I finally pulled into a wide gravel turnout to pee, I didn't even turn the engine off. I just put it in neutral and set the brake. The air bled down with that sigh that sounds like relief. I got out quick, stepped around the front, and faced the wind so the smell would blow away. The cold hit hard. It woke me up. I zipped up, stood there for a second, and listened. At first, all I heard was my engine and the distant click of the reefer running through its cycle. Then I heard something else. Another engine. Not near. Back down the road a ways. It had a high, mournful whine like a straight-piped motorcycle, but it was steady like a generator. I couldn't see anything coming. The horizon was empty in both directions. The sound got a little louder, then faded, like someone was rolling up their window while they revved. It made the hairs on my arms prick under my jacket. I climbed back in the cab. As I reached for the shifter, I glanced at the passenger seat. There was a handprint on the vinyl. Right there, in the dust that always settles in a truck no matter how much you clean. 4 fingers and a thumb, clear as if someone had leaned in with their palm to steady themselves and then slipped back out. No smudge on the window. No footprints on the step. Just the print. I stared at it. I didn't touch it. Not then. I put the truck in gear and pulled back onto the road. I told myself I'd clean it at the next stop, and that it could be anything. My kid, a mechanic, me even. And I didn't remember. We lie to ourselves in layers. I started talking to myself out loud. I do that sometimes. It was nonsense like, "All right, that's enough. And let's go. Like I was both the driver and the crew chief for some race team. It helped. But I kept glancing at that handprint like it was an animal that might twitch. About an hour after that, the sun slid behind a thin sheet of cloud, and the light went gray. The 2-lane widened to 4, where the state had tried to fix some bottleneck, and then got bored halfway through. I saw a sign that said, "Rest area 2 miles," and felt like I should pull in and stretch. I was early on my clock. I could afford 10 minutes. I took the ramp and rolled into the lot. There were 3 cars and no trucks. That's not unusual midday, but it felt wrong that day. I parked along the far side, nose out, and stepped down. I did a quick walk around. Lights good, tires good. The reefer unit looked back at me like a squinting eye. I put my hand on the trailer wall to feel for vibrations. It felt normal. The handprint on the passenger seat was still there when I looked through the glass. Inside the restroom, the lights buzzed in that way fluorescent lights buzz when they're tired of their job. The tile was clean enough. Someone had scraped clay plus Mindy Forever into one stall door, and someone else had tried to sand it off and made it worse. I did my business, washed my hands, looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like a guy who'd been driving a while. Nothing interesting. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw the stall door swing shut behind me in the mirror. It had been open when I came in. That's not scary. Doors move. But the stall latched. The little partition hardware slid and clicked. There was no one walking in. The other stalls were open. The sink water slowed to a drip and then stopped. The lights buzzed a little louder, then softened. You can tell when a building is breathing wrong. This one was. I moved to the exit and pushed it open. The hinge gave a weird squeak like a laugh. Outside, the lot looked different. The sun was lower than it should have been, for one thing. I wasn't in there that long. The cars were gone, not moved. Gone. And on the far end of the lot, near the picnic tables, there was a woman standing and looking at my truck. Tall, wearing a denim jacket and jeans, hair down to her shoulders. She had that posture people have when they're trying to decide if they should approach you and ask for help. Polite distance. But she never took a step. I walked halfway to her and raised a hand. She raised hers, slow. The movement bothered me because she didn't look nervous. She looked patient, like she had all the time in the world. "Can I help you?" I said, my voice too loud in the empty air. She smiled a little and shook her head. Then she turned and walked toward the picnic tables, past them, and kept walking toward the small stand of trees that marked the boundary of the rest area. There was a fence there, a barbed wire fence with those twisted strands and metal posts that like to lean. She walked up to it and didn't slow down. She didn't climb. She didn't duck. She just kept walking. And when she reached the fence, she kept going. The strands moved a little, then settled. It looked like fog sliding around her, except there was no fog. She didn't look back. I didn't move for maybe 30 seconds. Then I backed up 4 long steps, turned, and got into my truck. I started the engine even though it was already idling. I put it in gear and rolled out. My hands were shaking. I could hear my breath. My radio was quiet. I pulled back onto the highway faster than I should have, like something was behind me, even though the mirror showed nothing but the rest area sitting there in the lazy light like it had for years before and would for years after. I wasn't going to stop again until I saw a truck stop with at least 10 rigs parked. That was the plan. I made it another 60 miles before I saw a sign that said Gas Food Diesel, and I took the exit. The truck stop was small but busy. A couple flatbeds, a tanker, a dump truck with a tarp rolled up wrong. Guys moving slow, the way you do when you know the road isn't done with you yet. I parked between two sleepers and shut down. I sat for a minute with the quiet pressing on my ears. Then I looked at the passenger seat. The handprint was gone. I didn't hear it. I didn't watch it fade. It just wasn't there anymore. I locked up and went inside. Coffee. A hot dog that had been there too long. The woman behind the counter had that hard kindness that says she's going to treat you right as long as you treat her right. I paid, said thanks, and the bell over the door rang when I went back out. There weren't bells on these doors anymore. I know that. Most places hadn't had those in years. But I heard it. Clear. That little ding-a-ling like some small-town hardware store. I looked back through the glass. The woman behind the counter was looking at me with a puzzled expression, like she'd heard it too and didn't want to say it out loud. Then she looked down and kept doing whatever she was doing. In the lot, a guy in a Carhartt beanie waved me over like we knew each other. He had that face you've seen 1,000 times, weathered, cracked in the right places, a grin that doesn't die easy. He leaned against the fender of a cab over that looked too clean for the work it claimed it did. "You running the 230s?" he asked. I didn't ask how he knew. I just nodded. "Yeah," I said. "You stop at that way station?" "Had to." He nodded like he expected that answer, then said, "He talked to you?" I didn't say who. I didn't say how. I just nodded again. "Don't stop again until dark," he said. "And don't stop in the dark unless you see 8 trucks or more. I'm serious, 8 or more. Don't count bobtails. Don't count box trucks. 8's the number." I looked at his truck to see his company, but the door was blank. No DOT number, no logo, nothing. Maybe he was leased to someone small and lazy about decals. Maybe he wasn't anything at all. "What happens if I do?" I asked. He didn't answer that. He tilted his chin toward my trailer instead. "Don't open the doors," he said. "Tell me you won't." "I won't," I said. "They're sealed." He smiled like that mattered less than I thought. Then he pushed off the fender and gave me a little salute you do with 2 fingers when you don't want to make it a big deal. "Keep the rubber side down," he said, and walked away like we'd finished a conversation we never started. I got back in the cab. I ate in 2 bites. I didn't taste it. I fired up and rolled back out. It felt better being around other trucks for those few minutes. It felt like being in a room with the lights on. But roads don't care about that. And as soon as I merged back onto the highway, it was me and the reefer, and the long gray strip of country that behaves itself until it doesn't. Dusk came fast. The sky threw up one of those orange-purple shows that gets people to pull over and take pictures. But there was no one to pull over. The 2-lane turned into sweeping curves, and then I saw the first sign for a canyon I'd forgotten was on this route. Nothing crazy, not like the Rockies, but enough to make you downshift and watch your speed on the way down. The truck felt heavy in that satisfying way when everything is right, and you and the machine are in agreement. The reefer clicked. The wind picked up and shoved the trailer a little like a kid testing how far he could push you before you tell him to knock it off. Halfway down, my headlights swept across something on the shoulder that looked like a deer. Then it looked like a person. Then it looked like neither. It was on all fours, skin the color of waterlogged cardboard. It turned its head as I passed, and the face was wrong. Not a monster face, not teeth, just wrong, like someone had assembled the parts blindfolded and got close enough to pass in bad light. Its eyes didn't catch the light the way a deer's would. They stayed dark. It was moving slow. It didn't flinch when I blew past. I've seen weird junk on roads, animals torn up, people out of their minds, mannequins that fell off someone's trailer and rest areas where teenagers think they're invisible. This was none of that. This was something that had learned how to be near a road without understanding what a road was. It didn't belong there. I had to unclench my jaw because I was afraid I'd chip a tooth. When I got to the bottom of the grade, the CB crackled a third time. Same voice, same calm tone. "Don't let it make you stop," he said. I hit the talk button before I could think better of it. "Who is this?" There was a long pause. Then, "A driver, like you. Keep rolling. 8 trucks or more. You remember?" "Who are you?" I said again. "How are you on my radio?" Another pause. Then, "You got a daughter, Matt?" he asked. I didn't say my name on the radio. Not that day. Not ever. The air in my cab turned thin like the altitude had doubled. I set the mic down slowly. My hands were sweating. The wheel felt slick. I drove for almost an hour without blinking, or that's how it felt. Trucks started to appear. One passed the other way with his marker lights dim like he was trying to be polite, then did a small wiggle of his trailer. 2 more came up behind me, then broke off at an exit. A pickup sat on an overpass with its headlights off. I counted my breaths. I told myself I'd stop when I saw a truck stop with 8 trucks or more. I was not going to get cute and say 7 was close enough. Around 9 p.m., I saw a glow ahead that promised diesel and coffee and the chance to hear someone else breathe. I pulled in. The lot had 9 trucks lined up, and 3 more circling because real estate in there was tight. I laughed out loud when I counted. It wasn't a happy laugh, but it was something. I parked at the far end in a crooked slot that would earn me a dirty look at lunchtime, but was fine at that hour. I set the brake and just sat, hands on the wheel, eyes on the dash. The reefer unit clicked a different rhythm. I don't know how else to say that. It was a rhythm I hadn't heard. A guy knocked on my door after I hadn't moved for a minute. 3 taps. Not hard. I jumped and hit my head on the visor. He backed up and lifted his hands to show he wasn't looking for a fight. He was tall and skinny with a beard that looked like he cut it himself. He called up to me from the ground. "You get the way station?" he asked. "What?" I said, sliding the window down a crack. "You pull through the way station on the 230s today?" "Yeah," I said. "Did he talk to you?" I didn't answer. He nodded like I had. "Okay," he said. "If you hear the knocking tonight, don't answer it." "Who are you people?" I asked. Why does everyone know about this except me? We all learned the hard way, he said. You're learning the easy way. Don't open your doors for anything. If you hear it knock, let it knock. What is it? He looked past me at the line of trucks like maybe he'd find the answer on a mud flap. Doesn't matter what it is, he said. Only matters what you do. You'll be fine. Keep the radio down low. Don't go looking for it in the mirror. He walked away before I could ask another question. He went to a day cab 2 slots down and climbed in. He didn't start the engine. He just sat. I tried to sleep. I really did. I folded my arm under my head, turned on the bunk fan to make a little white noise, and pulled the curtain. My body buzzed like I'd had 3 too many coffees, even though I'd only had one. I was tired enough to cry, but couldn't shut off. The reefer clicked and hummed and blew cold air down the chute. At some point, I must have drifted because I woke up to the first knock. It came from the back doors. 2 heavy knocks. Open-handed, like when a cop knocks the first time to say, "Hey, open up." The whole truck shook a little, the way it does when someone hops on your ICC bar, but no heavier than a person. My eyes snapped open. I held my breath. They came again. Knock. Knock. I checked the clock on the dash without moving anything else. 2:13 a.m. The lot outside was quiet. I could hear a generator on someone's APU, a laugh from a driver walking back from the building. But no one opened my door. Knock, knock. I kept very still. I don't know why I thought that would help. It's not like whatever was out there could see through the sleeper and catch me mid-breath. But it felt important not to rustle the blanket. The knocking paused. I thought it was over. Then it came on the passenger door. 2 knocks. Light. Friendly almost. I've never been so aware of the distance between my head and that door. I could feel the cold through the glass. I waited. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. The knocking moved to the driver's door. 2 knocks. If I hadn't been told to ignore it, I might have cracked the window and told whoever it was to get lost. But now it was a rule. And it felt like rules were the only thing keeping me in the world where things made sense. I stayed still. It waited a long time. The kind of long that makes you count. Then it went back to the trailer doors and hit them harder. Not fists. Open palms. Whap. Whap. The metal flexed. Someone's air dryer purged out in the lot and I flinched. The knocking stopped. I didn't move for another 20 minutes. My body felt like it had turned into one big ear. When I finally let go of the breath I'd been holding, my head spun from the rush. I made it until morning. When the sky went pale, the fear in my chest eased like someone let one notch out of a ratchet. I cracked the curtain and saw coffee steam rising from 3 guys standing in a triangle near a flatbed. One of them looked up at my truck, saw the curtain move, and gave me a thumbs up without smiling. I got out stiff and made the long walk to the building to use the restroom. I felt eyes on me, but no one said anything. On the way back, I saw smears on my trailer doors at about shoulder height. Not handprints, just smears. The kind you'd make if you stood there and laid your palms flat and slid them down slow. The reefer unit looked normal. The temp was where it should be. The seal was intact. I got in the cab and started the engine and didn't look at the smears again. I wanted to get off the 2-lane as soon as possible. If I could get to the interstate, I told myself, I'd be fine. That's the lie you tell. Highways feel safer because there are more witnesses. They aren't safer They're just louder. The morning went okay. The road widened and the radio started to pick up normal chatter. A guy in a cattle hauler told a joke so bad it made me grin. Another guy griped about a way station that was actually open. I breathed easier. Sometimes that's all it takes. A bad joke and a complaint. I told myself I'd dreamt the woman walking through the fence. I told myself the knocking was some kid being an idiot in the lot. The smears were nothing. The reefer noise was road noise. I put the weird stuff in a box in my head. I've got a lot of boxes there. Just before noon, I hit a patch of construction that forced a convoy of us onto a detour. A flagger held up the sign and waved us through one by one. He didn't look at my face. He looked at my headlights like he was checking to make sure they were eyes. We crawled along a gravel road that cut 1 mile to the south and then back to the highway. As we turned back, I saw a single wide trailer up on blocks and a man sitting on the steps. He was barefoot. He held something on his lap that might have been a dog or a bundle of clothes. He watched us pass with his mouth moving like he was talking to someone just to the left of us. The bundle moved like it breathed. I don't think it was a dog. Back on the highway, something thumped twice inside the trailer. I flinched and checked the mirrors. The seal was still intact. The reefer read fine. I tapped the brakes in a little rhythm like I had a nervous tic. Up ahead, a green sign warned of a narrow bridge. I eased off. A car came the other way too fast and drifted over the line with the driver's eyes down. He didn't look up until my horn ripped the air right in his face. He jerked the wheel, his tires bit gravel, and his car fishtailed and then straightened, and he was past me. For 3 seconds after he went by, I saw a shape in his back seat sitting too upright, not wearing a seatbelt. Pale head, no hair. It turned to look at me. The eyes were the same wrong dark as the thing in the canyon. The CB popped loud with feedback like someone set a radio next to a speaker. I winced. Then the voice came through again. "Don't stop," the old smoker rasp said. "Don't pick anyone up. You're almost done." "Who are you?" I said, angry now because fear wears out and turns into anger when you need it to. Silence. Then, "I was where you are. That's all. How do I make it stop?" "If you're smart, you don't," he said. "You keep going, and it lets you go." "I've got a delivery in Reno," I said stupidly, like I needed him to know I was responsible, like that would change the math. "You'll make it," he said. Then, like he could hear my next thought, he added, "And don't get brave and go back to help what's behind you." It didn't help me. I wanted to ask what that meant. I wanted to ask what he did. I wanted to ask if he had a daughter too, and how he knew mine existed. But the radio went back to static. The normal kind. A guy complaining about scales again. A woman asking if the pumps at a Flying J were working. The world back in place like a tablecloth pulled tight. In the late afternoon, the road spit me out onto an interstate like it was tired of me. The relief was so strong I could have cried. I merged into a stream of cars and trucks and felt the little relationships you always feel out there. The guy in the left lane who might let you over. The one behind you who doesn't want to be behind you and is plotting something dumb. The motorhome the size of a studio apartment with a driver who forgot he's not in a Camry. I passed under an overpass tagged with a high school mascot. and for the first time in 24 hours, I thought I might be okay. I could smell the hot brakes from a truck ahead of me, and it didn't smell like danger. It smelled like work. The sky went blue again, and the sun was at my back throwing long shadows in front of me, like the road was unrolling itself in strips. I got a text ping from dispatch, ignored it. I don't text and drive. I turned on the radio station scan and found a classic rock channel that's the same in every state. I was 3 exits from a truck stop I knew when the reefer unit shut off. It didn't cycle. It cut. The way a TV does when someone jerks the plug out of the wall. The dash didn't show a fault. The temp reading froze. I glanced in the mirror and saw a flicker on the doors, like a reflection of light from a car behind me, except it wasn't the right angle. It crawled across the door like the shadow of a person's hand, even though there was no sun in the right place to cast it. My mouth filled with that copper taste you get when your body decides it's time. The knocking started again, not at a stop, while I was rolling. 3 hits, harder than before. The truck shivered. I checked my mirrors and saw nothing. The knocking came again. The left lane had a car in it, so I couldn't get over. I held the wheel at 10 and 2 like a student driver. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. The radio went dead. Not off. Dead. The world went very quiet except for my engine and wind noise and the sound of rubber on asphalt. Then, over all that, from inside the cab behind me, 2 soft knuckles on the sleeper wall. Tap. Tap. I don't scare easy. I've crawled under trailers in snow with wind that felt like knives. I've dealt with guys at docks who act like you ruin their life by showing up on time. I've been in a jackknife in South Dakota that should have killed me and didn't. None of that reached the part of me this reached. It leaned to my ear and breathed. I didn't turn around. I didn't look in the bunk. The rule in my head was simple and bright, like a sign in a tunnel. Don't look. Don't answer. 8 trucks or more. Keep going. I focused on the exit signs like they were words I could count on. I took the next off-ramp too fast and corrected. The knocking moved back to the trailer doors at the moment I slowed for the ramp like whatever it was needed me to be stopped to get what it wanted. That made some disgusting sense to part of my brain, and I leaned into the accelerator and kept rolling. I came into the truck stop lot hot, saw there were plenty of trucks, and did a U-turn around the islands at a speed that would make a safety guy faint. I found a spot along the back row with a concrete wall behind it. I backed in until my ICC bar almost kissed the barrier. If whatever had been knocking wanted the back doors, it would have to pass through concrete to get there. That made me feel smart for 30 seconds. Then the knocking started on the side of the trailer instead. Same height, same cadence. Boom, boom. Open hands, not fists. If you're thinking ghosts, don't. If you're thinking prank, don't. It was something that knew what hands were and how to pretend to be polite. I set the brake and killed the engine. The reefer unit was still dead. I looked at the temperature. It read the same. I stared at the side mirror and didn't see anyone there. I froze for maybe 5 minutes. Then I remembered that food goes bad whether you're scared or not. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped down. It took everything I had to do that. My knees didn't want to lock. I rounded the front of the truck, staying as far from the sidewall as I could, and swung the beam toward the trailer. There were palm prints there. Hundreds. Not bloody. Not even dirty. Just moisture. like the way your hand leaves a print on glass when your skin is warm and the surface is cold. They covered the whole side of the trailer in overlapping shapes. Some were child size. Some were as big as my chest. They went up to the roofline. They didn't drip. They didn't spread. They just sat there, fading as I watched, like breath on a mirror. I pointed the light at the corner where the trailer meets the wall and swept it up and down. Nothing there. No one crouching. No one waiting to make me jump. The hair on my neck prickled anyway. I backed up until my shoulders hit the cab, climbed in, and locked the doors like a lock would do anything against something that could put its hands through metal. I sat and breathed with my mouth open and listened. The reefer unit clicked and came back to life. The temp reading updated. It hadn't spiked like it should have if it had truly shut down. Maybe it never did. Maybe it was only off for me. I don't know. The radio popped and crackled and dropped me back into the middle of a country song I hate. I turned it off. I didn't want anyone else's voice in my head. It didn't knock again that night. I slept eventually. I dreamed I was parked on a dirt lot in front of a house with a porch that wrapped all the way around. On the porch were people I knew and people I didn't. My mom, my daughter, guys I'd worked with and didn't remember until I saw their faces. They drank from red cups and watched me without speaking. It felt like I was late to something I'd agreed to go to. The dreams had that obvious symbolism you only get when you're really tired, and your brain can't be bothered to be subtle. It wasn't scary. It was worse. It felt like being held under a warm blanket in a locked car in July with the windows up. I made Reno on time. I backed into the dock and handed over the papers and waited in the driver's room with a TV on mute, showing a cooking show where they yell a lot. The guy at the desk had an army cap and a limp. He was serious in a way that doesn't invite jokes. When the unload was done, he came back with my copy and said, "Seal was good." Then he paused. "You all right?" "I'm fine," I lied. He looked at me a second longer. "You look like you need sleep," he said, and handed me the clipboard. I slept that afternoon at a rest area outside Reno with a dozen trucks and one RV whose owner had 2 dogs who barked at anything that moved and then forgot why. I woke up to the sound of someone's alarm and felt like I'd been poured into my seat. My body hurt like I'd run a race instead of sat in a chair for 12 hours. I checked the trailer sides in the light. No prints, no smears, just road grime and the reflection of a sky that had decided to be kind for a bit. I ran 2 more loads before I had to pass back through the 230s. I thought about going around, adding hours, adding miles. I even called dispatch and asked if they had anything that would let me skirt that stretch, and the guy on the phone said, "You okay?" Which is a nice way of saying no. In the end, I went. You can't let one road own you. That's another lie. Roads own all of us. The second time through, it was nothing. The way station sign read, "Closed." The door was shut. No mug on the desk, no voice on the radio. The houses with the flags looked empty. The guy mowing the grass wasn't there. The rest area had 2 trucks and a family picnicking at a table like it was a park. The woman in the denim jacket wasn't anywhere. It bothered me that I missed her. It bothered me more that I didn't. Nothing happened that whole day, and when I pulled into a truck stop that night, the lot felt like a party. Guys talking, someone changing a belt in the corner, A dog with one ear that kept tilting its head at every voice like it could understand English if it tried hard enough. I slept through without knocking. I woke up feeling almost normal. I told myself it was a fluke. I told myself my brain had played with me and the road had helped. You can convince yourself of anything when the sun is up and the coffee is hot. About a week later, I was in a diner in Utah. A bunch of us were there because they had chicken fried steak that could bring a man back from the dead. The coffee was strong. The waitress called everyone Han without faking it. The guys at my table were the kind you're not friends with, but you could be if you were stuck somewhere together for a long time. One of them asked, "You ever run the 230s?" Like it was nothing. Another guy laughed and said, "Oh hell," with the kind of laugh you hope you never hear coming out of your own mouth. I told them my story, not the dream, not the handprints, not all the parts, just the way station voice and the knocking. That was enough. The guy with the laugh shook his head and said he'd had something similar 3 years back. The other guy said he never went that way in October because his uncle had told him not to, and his uncle had died on that road in 1996. And even though the uncle's death wasn't weird, the road didn't deserve a win. We all ate while we talked. That's a trucker thing. You don't stop chewing to make a point. I asked if any of them had talked to the voice on the radio. The guy with the laugh went quiet and crumpled his napkin into a tight little ball like he was making trash as small as it could be. "Yeah," he said. "He told me to stop." I did. What happened? Woke up in my bunk at a different truck stop 200 miles away. Lost a day, lost my clock. Trailer full of milk was sour and the seal was intact. Boss docked me. I told him it was a bad unit. It wasn't. "You see anything?" He shook his head. "Just heard my mom's voice telling me to open the doors so she could get some air. She's been dead since 2011. We didn't say much after that. We drank coffee and looked at our plates like they had maps on them. The waitress dragged the pot around again and did her rounds. When she got to us, she noticed our faces and said, "What's wrong with you boys? You look like you stared at the sun too long." "We run the 230s, the guy with the laugh said softly. She set the pot down and leaned a hip against the booth like it was an old injury. "My brother used to drive," she said. "He wouldn't go near there. Said there's a stretch of road out there that doesn't know it's supposed to end. Said once you're in it, you gotta keep going or it keeps you." She looked at our cups, topped them off, and added, "He was a drinker though. Took a lot of naps in places he shouldn't." We laughed at that because we needed to. When we left, I tipped heavy and put a 10 by the register for the next guy who came in, looking like I looked that first morning. I wish I could tell you that was the end of it. That would be clean. That's not how this went. I ran the 230s 3 more times that winter. The second time after the first, nothing happened. The third time, the radio was normal. The way station was closed, and I didn't see anything weird until after dark, when a set of headlights fell in behind me and stayed a little too close for a little too long. I hate that. Makes you feel like you've got a leash on. I move over or speed up or slow down. This time I held steady at 62. The car matched me. I was about to key the mic and ask if someone wanted to get around when the headlights behind me split into 4, then 8. Like the car had eyes all across the front. It was a reflection from something. It had to be. But the way they moved looked like blinking. I took the next pull-off, let the car go, and watched it pass. It was a modern sedan with one of those license plate frames a dealer puts on. Nothing special, no extra lights. When it went by, I saw faces in the rear window. A row of them, like kids in a school picture. Pale, tongues sticking out like they were being rude or choking. Then the car was gone, and I sat with my hands shaking on the wheel and told myself to grow up. On the fourth run, the voice came back. It was morning, bright, crisp air that cut your lungs. The radio had been quiet. Then, "You still keeping the rubber side down?" he asked like we were old friends. "I don't like this," I said. "I don't like that you know me." "I don't either," he said. "But here we are." "What are you?" I asked. It felt stupid as soon as it left my mouth, like I was a kid asking the monster under the bed to show me its degree. "Doesn't matter," he said. "You got a daughter, remember?" I didn't like that. "Don't say her," I said. "Don't say anything about her." "Okay," he said. Then, after a pause that hurt, "You bring her to a truck stop once." "Don't talk about her," I said again, my voice going tight and high in a way I hated. "I mean, hell," he said. "I brought mine too. Once. Thought it would be cute. A little adventure. Ice cream at the counter. She liked the bell on the door." "There is no bell," I said. "There was then," he said, and we were quiet for a while after that. I turned the radio off and left it off. It didn't matter. He wasn't using it the way anyone else did. The last thing I'll tell you is this. It's the part I hate, and I don't need anyone's judgment. I already did that to myself. 2 months after the first time, the way station, the woman at the fence, the knocking, I was back on that road. The sky felt heavy in that way it does when weather's thinking about whether it wants to be weather or just drama. I was tired. I'd had a long week. I'd stacked a couple short runs on top of a long one because the money was good and my kid needed a new laptop for school. I told myself I could sleep when I got to the other side. Around mile 232, I saw a pickup on the shoulder. Old, primer gray, hood up. A guy's legs stuck out under it, boots dusty. I slowed, checked my mirrors, and my brain said 2 things at once. First, it's the same truck. Second, that's impossible. I rolled closer. The guy slid out from under the hood the same way, on his back, belt snagged on something. He came to rest with his head on the white line. His eyes were open. His mouth was open. He looked at the sky like he wanted to say something to it, and didn't know the words. I could have stopped. I should have. I didn't. I drove past at 40 and looked in the mirror and saw the dark stains spreading from his head and told myself it was oil, and told myself if I stopped, I would not start again. I told myself a lot of things. Some of them might even be true. 10 miles later, I had service. I called it in like last time. I gave the marker. The dispatcher said they'd send someone. My throat hurt like I'd swallowed a handful of glass. I drove the rest of the day quiet, and when I got to a truck stop that night, I backed against a concrete wall and counted the trucks and waited. Nothing knocked. The radio didn't talk. The reefer hummed. I slept and dreamed of a porch with people who wanted me to be late. People ask what the worst thing I've seen out there is. They want a story about a wreck, or about people doing dumb stuff on black ice. I have those. I could tell you about a cattle hauler that rolled and the way the air felt after. But the thing that sits on my chest at night is the feeling of driving past that man twice. I know I didn't. I know it doesn't make sense. I know he was probably a different guy. And maybe he was fine. And maybe he was not fine. And I did what I could do by calling. But I also know the way the road turned under my tires both days felt the same. And the sky felt the same. And the radio felt the same. And the door of the way station was open a crack in a way that made me want to put my hand in the wedge and pull even though I knew I shouldn't. If you're a driver and you have to run that stretch, I'm not telling you to be scared. Fear doesn't help. I'm telling you to be careful. I'm telling you to count trucks, 8 or more. I'm telling you to not open your doors when the knocking sounds like a neighbor. I'm telling you that if a voice on your radio knows your daughter's name, you turn the radio off and you keep your eyes on the mile markers and you don't stop until you see people. Not cars. People. The ones who wave you into their lot with a tired smile and a cup of coffee and a bad joke about scales. The ones who've seen weird stuff too and don't need you to prove anything. I still run that road. Not often, if I can help it. But I still do. You can't give part of the map to the dark, because then the dark starts to think it owns the rest. Maybe that's nonsense. Maybe it's the lie I need to keep the wheels turning. My kid's older now. She doesn't want to go to truck stops and watch the candy racks anymore. She still asks me to text when I get there. I tell her I will. Sometimes I forget, and she sends me a question mark. It makes me smile every time. A month ago, I ran west again with a load of produce. The sky was clean. The CB was full of a guy singing off-key. I passed the way station, and for the first time in a long time, the sign was open and a car was parked out front. A trooper sat on the hood with his hat tilted back, writing something in a little book, and he looked up at my truck like he was counting my axles by feel. The intercom crackled. Not my radio. The actual intercom. It squealed like a cheap microphone and a voice said, "Driver, roll on through." Not the same voice. Younger. Clear. I rolled. As I passed, the trooper raised 2 fingers in a lazy salute the way the guy had at the little truck stop. I lifted mine in return. It felt like we were actors in a play we hadn't rehearsed. In my mirror, for just a second, I saw the little building's doors swing wider than the wind could push it. I saw a light inside that wasn't fluorescent. It looked warm, like a kitchen. Then the door swung back to the crack it had been at, and the sign flickered and said, "Closed," even though I was still on the scale. For a second, I heard a bell ding like a diner door. Then it was just me and the road, and the hum of the reefer, and the mile markers doing what mile markers do. I took a breath like I'd been underwater. The radio popped and some guy told a joke that didn't land. I laughed anyway. Here's what I think, and it's the only thing I'll claim to know for sure. Some roads don't like you. Some buildings breathe wrong. Some voices show up on channels you didn't choose. If you're unlucky, they pick you. If you're lucky, they leave you alone. The trick is to behave like you're lucky while still acting like you're not. Keep your eyes up. Count to 8. Don't open the doors. And if something knocks that sounds like a friend, remember the rules we tell each other in parking lots and diners and online when we're tired and honest for a minute. Keep going. Keep the rubber side down. Don't stop for something that learned how to knock. One more thing. If you ever hear a voice on the radio that knows your name, don't answer with it. Say driver, and let it think that's who you are. Let it talk to the idea of you, and not to you. And if you're passing through the 230s, and you see a primer gray pickup with its hood up, and a man sliding out under it slow as a bad dream, do what you have to do. Call it in if you want. Stop if you think you can, and if the sky doesn't feel like it's sitting on your shoulders. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong either way. I've been both drivers now, the one who slowed and the one who didn't, and both of them rode with me for a long time after. They still do. Sometimes at night, when I pull my curtain and click the bunk fan on low, I hear 2 soft knocks on the wall behind my head. Tap, tap. I don't answer. I don't look. I count to 8, the way my daughter used to count before she jumped off the couch into my arms. Then I sleep. Usually. And in the morning, I wake up and start the engine and listen for the reefer to come alive. And I tell myself I dreamed the bell. But I still hold the door for strangers when I walk into any place that looks like it might be old enough to have had a bell once, just in case it's not done with me yet. I've been driving a truck long enough to know the way a road can change its mood. It's like people. Most days it minds its business, lets you roll, takes what you put on it, and doesn't complain. Then there are the days it looks at you and decides you're a problem. That's not something I thought about when I started. I figured pavement is pavement and weather is weather, and my job was just to keep the shiny side up. But if you do this long enough, you learn certain stretches have a personality. Some hate you from the first mile marker. This happened on Interstate 80 in winter. If you run out west, you know that strip of Wyoming. If you don't, picture a whole state trying to blow away while you hang on to it with 18 tires. The wind will take your hat off from inside the cab. The snow doesn't fall so much as it travels sideways looking for a fight. It's pretty when you look at it from a calendar. Not so pretty when you're staring at your wipers working like they owe you money and your trailer is playing kite on a stick. I was dragging a dry van full of paper goods from Nebraska to Salt Lake. Supposed to be easy. Light load, decent pay, beat the worst of the storm, reset on the far side. Dispatch said the magic words, "If you leave today, you'll be ahead of it." That's dispatcher talk for, you'll be in it. But I wanted the miles. I topped off in Cheyenne, put an extra jug of diesel anti-gel behind the seat, and rolled. The first hours weren't bad. The sky was that hard blue you only see when it's too cold to snow. I passed a cattle hauler, whose driver gave me the 2-fingered wave like we were both members of the same club and it was our secret. The CB had the usual chatter about a scale house being open in Laramie, a guy looking for a cheap set of snow chains, another guy asking if anyone else's microwave had given up the ghost. All normal. Past Elk Mountain, the wind started. If you've been there, you know the sign. High wind warning. Light high-profile vehicles advised to stop. I weighed enough that I wasn't technically light, but that sign always makes me think about my life choices anyway. The gusts came in hard from the south like someone trying to slap the trailer off the pavement. I eased down a few and kept both hands on the wheel. My exit plan if the whole thing went sideways was to let it go sideways instead of fighting it. There's a right way to lose. Around Rollins, the sky pulled a gray sheet over itself. The first fingers of snow came in low and fast, like they were late for something. Traffic thinned. The CB changed from jokes to business. Speeds dropped. A trooper came on to say the westbound was still open, but they were closing it behind us segment by segment, and eastbound was already getting held. That's the thing about 80. When it decides to shut, it does it like a door in a hurry. I should have stopped in Rollins. There's a truck stop there with a lot big enough to park a parade. I even signaled for the ramp. Then I talked myself out of it. I was still in the white-knuckle zone where stopping feels worse than moving, like death only happens if you let off the throttle. It's not rational. I did the math you do to justify a bad call. I had fuel. The plows were running. A convoy of 3 were headed out and I could tuck in behind them. If I made it to the next big stop, I'd be set. So I kept going. The world went white. Not at once, but close. One of those whiteouts that isn't heavy, just constant. The kind that eats your distance away. You can see your hood, your wipers, the immediate road, and then everything else is a guess. My headlights turned into 2 pale ovals. I focused on the reflectors fixed to the right side of the road like my life depended on those little orange eyes. It did. About 10 miles out of Rollins, the LED sign over the road said, "Road closed ahead. Use next exit." Another sign under it said, "Chain law in effect." I didn't want to chain up on the shoulder. I didn't want to chain up at all. But there it was. The next exit was a nothing exit with a frontage road, a snow fence that went on forever, and a service station set back from the interstate behind a row of gnarly cottonwoods. It looked older than everything around it. The kind of place you can't tell if it's open from the highway, but the lights are on, and that's enough. I took the ramp slow. A bull hauler slid off ahead of me and corrected with the kind of grace only a guy who lives on this road gets. He flicked his 4-ways twice. I took that as a hello and a warning at the same time. The station was called Summit 17. Neon coffee mug in the window. 2 pumps under a metal canopy tink-tink-tinking in the wind. A rusty plow truck with a chain hanging off the back like it was a belt on a drunk. 4 rigs were already in the lot, noses pointed away from the wind like cats in a storm. A cab over that looked older than me. A day cab with a lowboy. A box truck with a tarp strapped over its roof like a hat. And a flatbed with a coil wrapped up like a burrito. I pulled in beside the flatbed and set the brake. I could feel the wind still trying to shove me from behind, even with the brakes hissing down. I slid on my jacket and hat and made that stupid half-run, half-hunch we all do in bad weather from the cab to the door, like if you move faster the air can't find you. Inside it was warm in the way a place is warm because it's old and thick, not because they're blowing heat like crazy. Coffee smell and something frying on a griddle. There were maybe 12 stools at a counter and 4 tables. A woman behind the counter poured coffee, like she'd been doing it long enough to tell fortunes in the way the liquid moved. She had gray hair pulled back in a loose knot, and the kind of eyes that tell you she's seen everything twice and didn't flinch either time. "You're out of luck, hon," she said by way of hello. "Westbound closed at the Summit. Patrol will cut it again at the next gate in about 20 minutes. You might as well get warm and wait." "I was hoping to get to the next stop," I said. "You and everyone with a schedule," she said, and put a mug in front of me without asking first. "First cup's on me. After that, I'm charging you like you said something I don't like." A guy on the 3rd stool from the door laughed without humor. He wore a Carhartt jacket that had more history than mine, and his beard had white in it, where the wind had taught him something. The cab over driver sat next to him. He had that compact, tough look those guys always have, like everything on him was muscle and patience. The woman held up the coffee pot. "You can call me May," she said. "Or you can call me ma'am if you're the kind that does that. Either way, you're in my house until that gate opens again and the road decides you can go." "Appreciate it," I said. I put my gloves on the counter and wrapped my hands around the mug. The heat went right into the bones. The flatbedder was a woman in a flannel shirt with her hair in a braid. She had grease on her knuckles and a coil of chain on the floor under her boots. She nodded at me like we had a shared complaint we hadn't said out loud yet. "I'm Rena," she said. "Coil's not happy about sitting." "I'm Matt," I said. "Paper doesn't care." "Paper cares when it gets wet," the box truck guy said from the end. He had the face of a man who has smoked in the cab for a long time and will never admit that's what's done the work on him. Hector, the cab overdriver, slid his cup back toward May for a refill and looked at me. "Where you headed, Matt?" "Salt Lake," I said. "You?" "Everywhere and nowhere," he said. "This old girl goes where they pay me not to ask questions." May rolled her eyes. "He means Rock Springs today," she said. "Hector likes to pretend he's mysterious." "He's not. He's just old." "I am both," he said, and grinned. We looked up when the bells over the door rang. I swear to you there were bells on that door. Little brass ones. Tink, tink. Nobody hangs bells on commercial doors anymore. They get in the way. They drive people crazy. But there they were. And when a guy came in and stomped snow off his boots, the sound went right through me like a memory. The new guy was a bull hauler. He'd parked out front. He had that wired look those drivers get because they run hard and sleep light. He took a stool, nodded at the rest of us, and asked if anyone had heard whether the port in Wamsutter was letting anyone through southbound. "Everything's shutting," May said. "Storm owns the divide tonight." He made a face and took his coffee black like punishment. The CB on the counter behind the register hissed. It looked like one from the 90s. The microphone had a crack in the molded plastic. I don't know why it bothered me. Everything in that place felt worn but solid, like a trucker's coat. That radio felt like an antique that had kept working because no one told it could quit. "Trooper says the gate's coming down," Hector said without moving his lips much. He had that habit of talking without wasting anything. He could have been a stage magician, the way his hand stayed still. "We're about to have company. Or we're about to be alone for the night." "I got a delivery at 8 a.m., Rena said. She didn't complain. She just stated a fact like it was weather. "Delivery will still be there when you are," May said. "Storm doesn't pay attention to our clocks." The bells rang again. A kid came in behind his dad. Not a little kid. Teenager. Thin. Too thin for weather like this without a real coat. He held the door for his dad like a gentleman. The dad had that look on his face like he was keeping it together for the boy, and losing it any minute he didn't have to act. They didn't sit. They stood by the pies under glass and breathed in the warmth like it was medicine. "Kitchen's closing," May said to them, "but I can do you grilled cheese and soup. After that, you get coffee and a story." The dad nodded like she had just made a fair deal with him. "Thank you," he said. His voice was from somewhere further east than here. Arkansas, maybe. The boy smiled at me because I looked at him. It was a real smile. It didn't reach his eyes because they were tired, but it tried. I ate a grilled cheese I didn't know I needed. The soup was tomato and tasted like my mom's if my mom had worked on a highway. The storm got louder outside. You could hear it even from in there. A steady push on the doors. The kind of wind that finds the little spots around the frame and whistles through like a tune no one taught it. Then the CB on the counter cracked like someone snapped a stick next to it. Everyone looked. May reached for the squelch. Before she touched it, a voice came through. It was a man's voice, smoker rough, and it said, "Driver, you need to get rolling. Don't hang around." Hector's head turned slow toward the radio like a dog that hears a note only it can hear. Raina's braid swung when she looked. No one else moved. "Who's that?" I asked, because I don't know how to keep my mouth shut when I should. May kept her hand off the radio like it was hot. "You don't have to answer it," she said. The voice came again, not caring what we had decided. "Road's clear right now," it said. "Won't be in 10. Convoy's leaving. You ought to join it." The bull hauler snorted. "There's no convoy," he said. "They shut the gate." As if to argue with him, headlights swept across the front windows. A line of rigs went by, noses low to the wind, lights pale in the white. I counted 4, then 2 more, then one whose lights blinked twice like a nod. They were moving slower than you would in rain, and faster than you should in this. Raina stood, tossed cash on the counter, and looked at me. "You coming?" "Is this smart?" I asked. "No," she said, "but I'm not sleeping here." "You could do worse," May said. I didn't want to sleep there, not because I didn't like it, because it felt like a place where stories stick to you. I've got enough of those. I threw some bills down too, and drained the last of my coffee like it could become courage if I worked fast enough. "Count your trucks," May said as I hit the door. "Don't go unless you see at least 6. 7 is better. 8 is safe." "I don't think safe is on the menu," I said. She looked at me in a way that made me feel like I was a kid again, and the grown-ups knew more than I did. "You want my rules or not?" I nodded. "Give me all of them." "Don't stop on a bridge," she said. "Don't open your doors for anyone. If you hear your name, it's the wind. If you get separated, steer by the posts on your right. And if somebody waves you down with a flare, count the flares. 5 is a person. 4 is the road being clever." "What if I see 3? I asked. "Then you missed 2, she said. The bells tinked when we went out. I did that half run again. The cold hit hard enough to make my teeth feel loose. Snow stung where it found skin and didn't care about anything else. I climbed up, fired the engine, and let the air build, while I flicked my lights and checked everything I could check from inside a bottle of milk. Raina pulled out first, her flatbed's markers bright dots in the swirl. I watched for the convoy. I counted 7 trucks ghosting past the station, their profiles appearing and disappearing like they were taking turns being real. That was enough for me. I rolled to the ramp and tucked in where I could see a set of trailer lights and see my mirrors without too much nonsense. The road had that feeling under me, that slick whisper that means you are skating more than you're driving. I kept the wheel gentle. No sudden anything. My foot on the throttle was a suggestion, not an order. The first mile was bearable. We were a train in the white, each of us a car that trusted the one ahead. The CB was quiet in the way it gets when everyone's listening for the same danger and doesn't need to say it out loud. Every now and then, someone in the chain would call out a marker. Sounded like 289 or cattle guard right. And that would be that. Then my radio popped. Nothing to do with the chatter from the convoy. Different tone, like something old warming up. "Matt," the voice said, "you're good. Keep rolling." I did not like that. I had never said my name on the air, not to anyone. I hadn't even told it to the people inside there unless someone had repeated it after I said it once when I walked in. Maybe the guy at the end had heard me. Maybe not. Either way, I didn't like that voice knowing it. "Who is this?" I asked. The sound of my own voice surprised me. It didn't sound like me. Hector's voice came on a second later, calm as a level. "Stay with the lights in front of you, driver," he said. "Don't answer the wind." "Copy," I said, and took my finger off the button. The old voice didn't come back right away. When it did, it wasn't on the CB. It was closer, inside my cab, right behind my left ear where the little window is. It said my name soft, like my mom waking me up for school when I was little. "Matt," it said, gentle, like a promise. "You missed your exit." "No, I didn't," I said. I said it out loud like a crazy person in an empty room. It was the only way to make it less real. The road narrowed where the wind had thrown all the snow into drifts, and the plows had made a canyon out of it. We were rolling in a trench with white walls higher than the roofs of the cars that weren't there. If a truck got crossways in this, the whole train would accordion, and someone would die. You could feel that risk in the way everyone breathed. Raina's flatbed drifted a foot left when a gust hit. She corrected with a twitch and a prayer. The coil on her bed was wrapped and chained like a secret. The chain sang tight when the truck moved. I set my eyes on the 2 red dots of her tail and told myself those dots were the world. We passed an overpass with a car parked on it. No hazard lights. No driver visible. The snow had packed up around its tires like a blanket, like the road was tucking it in. A mile later, we went over a bridge across a frozen creek. You could tell it was a bridge because the posts changed color for 20 feet, and the wind got meaner. I put my foot down a hair to get across it fast, but not fast enough to ski. "Don't stop on a bridge," May had said. Her voice came back like a note pinned to my sleeve. The knocking started after the bridge, not a pounding, not someone trying to break in. The same rhythm as a neighbor checking to see if you're home. 2 quick taps on the back doors. The truck shivered a little with each one. I did the mental math drivers do when they're trying to make something normal. Was it ice falling off? Was it a strap flicking? Was it sound from the truck ahead bouncing back weird? My mind said yes, yes, yes. My body said no. "Keep rolling," Hector said on the air, like he could hear me thinking too loud. "I am," I said. I didn't press the button. I set it to my steering wheel like it needed to hear it. We came up on a set of flares. They burned low and red in the white like eyes half closed. I counted them because I had a new job I didn't know I had until 20 minutes ago. 1, 2, 3, 4. The truck ahead of Raina's started to slow. It made sense. 4 flares means hazard. 4 means someone's out there in trouble. The rules in your blood say you stop. Keep it moving, Raina said into the mic, voice steady in a way I admired. I count 4. Copy, someone else said. I count 4. I count 5, came a voice from the back. Not Hector. A younger voice. Nervous. The kind of voice that will tell you a lie because it wants to be helpful. Where? Raina asked. No answer. She spoke again, firmer. Where's your 5th driver? The flares flickered. The snow swirled around them and made them seem to dance. If you stared, you could make yourself believe there were more. If you stared longer, you might see a person raising their arms. I didn't stare. I slid past and put that picture into a box in my head that says, "Do not open." The knock came again. Tap, tap. Closer to the front this time, like it was working its way along the trailer. I looked at the mirror on the right out of reflex, even though I had promised myself to stop using the mirrors for confirmation of things I didn't want confirmed. In the temperature and the white, the mirrors were mostly useless anyway. But I looked, and for a second I saw a hand slide out of the white and press flat against the side of my trailer. It looked like someone pushing off while wading through a pool. The fingers were long and too many. Then the white took it back, and there was nothing to see but my own face looking at itself like an idiot. Eyes ahead, Hector said, not to me and also to me. A half-mile later, the CB lit up with a different man's voice. He sounded angry, or scared in the way men let themselves be scared. I'm pulling off, he said. I can't see a damn thing. I'm pulling off. Don't, Raina said. There's no off. There's a turnout, he said. I can... Don't, Hector said. It wasn't loud. It was final. The man didn't answer. Sometimes when a driver stops talking, it's because he's mad and wants to make his point by going dark. Sometimes it's because he's seen something and can't spare words. Sometimes it's because he is busy dying. I didn't find out which one this was. We passed a spot where the wind had carved a bowl in the snow on the right. It looked like a turnout. He could have parked a pickup in there on a good day. It was a trap on this one. The bowl would fill, and whoever went in would not come out without God and a tow cable. I counted trucks again, because it was something I could do that made me feel like I was not just meat in a metal box. I had 8 ahead, and at least 2 behind. Good numbers. The road tilted a hair, and the white went from steady to aggressive. It wasn't a blizzard in the storybook sense. It was more like an argument you couldn't win. We rolled into a section with snow fences on both sides. The state builds those to teach the wind not to drift over the highway. On a normal day, they work. On a day like this, they feel like the ribs of a giant thing that got buried, and you're driving through its cage. The posts had flags tied to them at certain intervals so the plows could find the edges. I put the flags on my right and made that my world. 290, someone called. 291. The old voice in my cab came back, too close again. It said my name in a patient way. Matt, it said. Pull over. Your strap is loose. You're going to lose the back pallet. I can see it. I can help. My load was paper goods wrapped and bricked like you could build a house with them. There were no loose pallets. There was nothing to see. I gripped the wheel hard enough to make my fingers hurt and said, louder than I should have, "No." "What's that, driver?" Raina asked. "Nothing," I said, which was a lie and also true if you asked the law. The bridge with the creek came back, Not the same one. Another one. They all feel the same when you're in white. This one had drifts piled up on the left so high they made a wall. The right side looked clean because the wind had snaked through and polished it. It was ice. The truck 2 ahead of Reyna hit that patch, and his trailer slewed. He corrected too much and the nose started to go. It was slow motion and also faster than thought. He was about to block us all. Then his trailer snapped back like something had grabbed it and yanked. It straightened 2 degrees too fast to be just physics. He rolled across and we followed. The wind made that sound it makes under bridges, low and mean, a voice you don't like. On the far side, the knocking stopped. It felt like being let out of a room. The quiet it left was worse. Like when your ears ring and then suddenly don't, and you realize the ringing was keeping you from hearing something you'd rather not. The convoy's taillights moved in the way of tired people helping each other without talking. We crested a light rise and the white went gray, then a shade darker, like we were driving into the belly of something. It took my brain a second to understand we were passing a line of trees. Not a forest. A line. Shelter belt trees planted along a property. They loomed up out of the white, and the wind changed its voice because of them. Windbreak, Hector said. If you have to stop, do it behind a windbreak, not on the open, not on a bridge. Nobody argued. We didn't stop. We reduced to a slow crawl through a section where the snow had poured into a dip and made a soup of it. Tires hissed the way they do when water throws its hands up and says, "Go on then." A shape moved along the fence to my right, matching my speed. At first I thought it was a man in a long coat, because my brain needed it to be something I had words for. Then it paced me for too long without changing how it moved. It went over fence posts like they were lines on paper. It didn't go around the drifts. It passed through without leaving a hole. Its head was wrong. Not monster wrong. Not horns and teeth. Wrong like a sketch someone did fast, and if you looked straight at it, the lines slid around like mercury. I told myself I was suffering from whiteout vision. Your eyes get tired. They hunt shapes that aren't there. That's a real thing. I clung to it like a plank. The CB crackled and the voice from before, the not maze, came again. You're almost to your motel, Matt, it said. Pull off at the next ramp. There's a light. There's warmth. Take a right at the end and come back around. I'm not staying in a motel, I said to no one. I'm staying in my truck like someone with sense. Copy that, Reyna said. I hadn't realized I had pressed the button. Embarrassment and fear taste the same. I looked for where the motel would be. There was nothing on my GPS but gray. The screen might as well have said, "Congratulations, you are nowhere." We crawled another 5 miles like that. You measure time by marker, and by the way your shoulders start talking to your neck. Every so often, a truck would call a micro warning. Plow ridge left. Wreck on the right, off the shoulder. Fuel island lights ahead. Do not take the exit. It's closed. We were a small organism teaching itself to live. We came to a rest area. You know how you can smell a rest area even from the highway? Hot toilets, coffee from a machine, a sour ghost of bleach. I swear I smelled it. The off-ramp was open through the gate. The lights glowed that sodium orange that makes everything look like a photograph from the 70s. I thought about the rules. I thought about what I'd do if I went in there and the door had bells, I didn't take the ramp. A pickup was stopped at the end of it. Hazard lights on. A man stood by the tailgate waving a flare back and forth. I counted without thinking. 1, 2, 3, 4. My foot eased off the throttle because I'm human. The lights ahead of me kept moving. Raina's voice came, not angry, not pleading, just there. 4, she said. Don't. The man's mouth moved. He was either yelling or smiling. Hard to say at that distance. The flare smoke got grabbed by the wind and spun up like a ribbon. He kept waving. We kept going. That would be the moment in a movie where it turns into something else. In real life, it was just another mile in a night that had too many miles in it. The road crossed a little river, and the wind died for 6 seconds. Those 6 seconds felt like vacation. Then it came back from a new direction, and I could feel the trailer go light. I backed off a hair and fed wheel the way you do on black ice. The trailer swayed, corrected, swayed. I kept my hands loose so my brain didn't send panic to my muscles. Panic in your arms will put you in a ditch faster than ice ever could. The convoy split. The leaders took the right fork toward a bombed-out truck stop that I knew was under construction. The rest kept straight on the frontage road. I guess they were locals who knew a cut I didn't. I stayed on Raina. I trusted that coil not to do anything stupid if I kept my distance. We ran along a snow fence that had messages pinned to it in spray paint. Stuff like slow and stop and arrows. None of it official. Someone's idea of help. The letters were half buried and the paint had run in the wet. They didn't point to anything I wanted. Almost there, Hector said. He was behind me now. I could feel him. Some drivers have a presence in your mirrors. It's not just their lights. It's like their rig has a taste. Almost where? I asked. Wind pocket, he said. We'll tuck in and wait until the plows take a bite. 8 trucks already there. 9 with Raina. 10 with you. 11 with me. Came a voice that wasn't anyone I'd heard earlier. Lighter. Young. Too young. I'm right behind the old cab. Stay close, Raina said. We turned off onto a dirt access road that the plows had half found and half made. It looked like a crime. Evergreen trees rose up on both sides, tall enough to lift your heart. The wind dropped 30%. 30% feels like a gift when you've been living at 100. A cattle guard clanked under my tires. We crept around a bend and there they were. Trucks lined up nose in along a stand of trees, their trailers sticking out at angles like parked boats in a storm cove. Engines idled. Headlights were off except for the guys coming in. The way their lights hit the snow made everything look like the inside of a TV when static is on. We took slots the way dogs take spots on a porch, each careful not to crowd, each wanting to be near the others without touching. I backed in between a reefer and a double set. My rear bumper kissed a drift, then the shuddering stopped, and there was the quiet of engines talking to each other instead of wind. I set the brake and sat there with my hands on the wheel for 2 full minutes, listening to my pulse in my ears. No one keyed their mic. No one moved. It was like church without the part where you stand up and sing. Then the knocking started again. Not on the back. On the passenger door, right by my head. 2 knuckles. Polite. Almost apologetic. Tap, tap. I stared at the door panel because I couldn't go anywhere else. The window was fogged a little from my breath. You could see the spot where the knocks came because the cold kissed the glass there harder. Tap, tap. 4 seconds. Tap, tap. 4 seconds. Patient. Like a cable repairman. Like a neighbor who knows you're home. I didn't answer. I put my hands under my thighs because I didn't trust them not to reach. I sat and listened and counted. On 20 it stopped. Silence came in like a tide. It's funny how you miss a noise you hate as soon as it leaves. The CB came alive. The young voice said, "I'm going to open my hood. I smell something burning." "Don't," Hector said. "Just for a second," the kid said. "I just need to." "Don't," Raina said. "Whatever you smell, let it smell. Wait for daylight." There was a long pause. It didn't feel like radio silence. It felt like someone thinking on the edge of doing something dumb because the part of their brain that knows better is tired. "Okay," the kid said finally. "Okay." I unclenched my jaw and realized I'd bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste iron. I swallowed and leaned back and closed my eyes for a second. When I opened them, there was a print on the fogged glass of my passenger window. Not a handprint. The kind of print your face would make if you pressed your cheek to the glass and breathed on it. It looked like someone had leaned in to see if I was asleep. "Guys," I said, pressing the button because it felt like brushing teeth in that moment. A ritual. "I have a face on my glass." "Ignore it," Hector said. "They get bored." "They?" "Don't name it," he said. "Naming is the opposite of ignoring." He was right. The face faded as my heater did its work. The fog cleared. It left a dry oval where it had been, like a stamp. Then even that went away. I must have dozed because the next thing I knew, Raina was saying, "Plow train." I lifted my head off the headrest. I didn't remember closing my eyes. Out in the white beyond the trees, lights moved in a long, slow line. Orange strobes. Big snow clouds curling off wings like waves. If you've never seen a plow train at night in a storm, it's beautiful in the way heavy machinery is beautiful when it's doing its job. It's also the only thing that looks brave in weather like that. "Wait for the second pass," Hector said. "First one's for their ego. Second one is for us." We waited. The wind yanked a fresh page of snow into the cut as soon as the plows made it. They came back again, and the cut held. The wind wanted to fight, but it had to pick its battles, and I guess the plows had made a good case. "One at a time," Raina said. "We go out how we came in, slow and straight." A guy on the end grumbled about wanting to go first because his hours were ugly. Nobody answered him. The engines came up one by one. Trucks ghosted out of the wind pocket like ships leaving a harbor. When it was my turn, I didn't want to go. I'm not too proud to say that. The little cove felt safe in the way bad places feel safe, because you already know the size of them. The road outside was unknown again. But you can't live in windbreaks in Wyoming. They're a rest, not a home. I pulled out behind Raina, felt the wind punch me in the chest, and aimed for the cut the plows had left like it was a finish line. The road had that new snow feel, slick but honest about it. We stayed in the shallow ditch they'd made. The white had eased from full scream to steady hiss. It was still a lot. It was survivable. Ahead, the gate arm that had fallen across the westbound lane sat heavy with snow. A trooper truck was parked with its lights turning slow circles on the ground. The trooper himself stood by the cab, head down, talking into his radio, his hat pulled low. When we rolled past, he looked up. He had the face of a man who drew the short straw and didn't complain about it because he swore an oath. His cheeks were red and raw. He held up a glove a fraction. It wasn't a wave. It was a "you good." We were. The wind stayed rude another 50 miles. It always does. You get past one problem, and the road reminds you there's never only one. By the time we hit a real truck stop again, the storm had wandered off to beat somebody else up, and the sky had the strange clear. You get right after a fight. I parked in a line of other rigs and shut down, and didn't move for a long time, like the seat had grown around me. Inside, the place was bright and loud and smelled like hot oil and tired people. Reyna and Hector were at a corner table. I joined them without being asked. That's another thing you get on the road. Company that arrives and leaves without making a fuss about either. You did good, Hector said like he was telling me I'd tied my shoes right. First winter rodeo in that? First this bad, I said. I've had ugly. This was different. They don't all talk, he said. I swallowed coffee that was too hot and burned my tongue, and was grateful for the normal pain. The face on the window, I said. You all get that? Hector looked at his cup. Reyna looked at me. I get voices, she said. They say my wife's name sometimes. Tell me there's black ice ahead. Real helpful. Then when I hit the brakes like a dummy, the ice shows up. I get a child laugh, Hector said, from the passenger seat behind me. Sounds like a girl with a winter hat on and a nose that's running. I don't have any kids. I don't like being used like that. We sat with that for a minute. The baby in the booth behind us threw a fry and laughed for real, and his mom fetched it off the floor and told him he was a monster, in a voice that made clear she loved her monster. It felt like someone had cracked a window in my head. You ever been to Summit 17 before? I asked them, because I figured I might as well aim directly at the part that bothered me most. Maze? Hector asked. He half smiled. Long time ago. I stop sometimes when I know I shouldn't, Reyna said. She makes a sandwich that tastes like the end of a long day. You know the one? I don't know how she does it. You ever pay? I asked. Sure, she said. Why? Because I put cash down, I said, and I don't remember change. I don't remember her ringing me up either. I remember her telling me not to stop on a bridge like she was talking about a particular bridge I hadn't seen yet. Maybe she was, Hector said. Some people are good at reading weather. Some are good at reading people. Some read the road like it's a Bible. You think she's real? I asked. It felt like a stupid question the second it left my mouth. I don't know what answer I wanted. I don't know which one would have made me feel better. Hector shrugged. I think I've eaten there, he said. I think I'll stop again if I see it. I think it only shows up when you need it more than you deserve it. That doesn't make sense, I said. Neither does your face on the window, he said. We didn't settle anything. Of course we didn't. We ate. We talked about tire brands like that mattered. We traded a few names of shops you can trust, and ones you can't. Reyna checked the weather on her phone and shook her head, and then shook her head again like it would change what the map showed. We went our separate ways because that's what you do after you survive something with strangers. You don't make it a bigger deal than it is. You wave. You say keep the shiny side up. You mean it. I made my delivery in Salt Lake. The receiver signed like he was doing me a favor. He wasn't. That's fine. I fueled, parked, and slept the heavy sleep that feels like a debt being collected. When I woke up, I didn't think about faces on glass right away. It took an hour. Then I did, and it sat with me in the cab like a quiet passenger. A week later, I was back eastbound. Another front was thinking about it but hadn't committed yet. I told myself I wouldn't stop at Summit 17 even if I saw it. I told myself I would, actually, because it would be smart to prep if the road went bad. I argued with myself for 30 miles. I almost forgot until I saw the cottonwoods and the old sign and the neon cup in the window. I took the ramp because I had to know, which is not the same as need. The lot looked the same. The plow truck with the hanging chain. The same old pumps that look like they should ask you for exact change. I parked, went in, and the bells tinked. It felt like someone had thrown a small rock at my heart in a friendly way. Inside was empty. No drivers, no kid and dad, no bull hauler. Just the counter, the stools, the smell of coffee, and a lamination machine on the end of the counter that hadn't been there before. I didn't see a door to the back. I didn't see May. "Hello?" I said, and hated that I sounded like a tourist in my own life. The kitchen pass-through had a light on, plates stacked on a shelf, a loaf of bread in a bag with a twist tie. The grill was clean. The coffee maker had a fresh pot sitting like it had been poured for me. I walked behind the counter like a man who's been told to do something rude and needs to pretend it's not. On the back wall was a framed newspaper. The headline was about a 2-day closure on the pass. The photo was of plows in a line. The date was years ago. The paper was from a town that hadn't existed since before I was born. But there it was. The frame was dusty. When I ran my finger along the top edge, it left a line. On the counter, near the register, someone had written in Sharpie on a napkin holder. It said, "Count to 8. Don't stop on a bridge. If you hear your name, it's the wind." I left a 20 on the counter because I wanted to put something in that room that had my fingerprints on it. Then I poured a coffee, which is stealing, I guess. But the sign said first one was free, and what do you want from me? I stood there with the mug and listened for bells. I didn't hear them, because I was already inside. When I left, the wind had a different idea about the day and started up. I drove back up the ramp with both hands already on the wheel. In my passenger seat, where there was usually only junk mail and a flashlight and a map book I don't need anymore but keep because I like the feel of it, there was a thermos. Old green, dented thermos. The kind hunters carry. I hadn't put it there. I didn't open it at first. I stared until I had to look at the road again. I touched it at the next straight stretch, like you touch a dog you don't know to see if it bites. It was warm. I unscrewed the cup at a fuel stop and poured. Coffee. Strong. A little bitter. Not a flavor I recognized beyond someone made this for me. I drank and felt something in me loosen that had been locked since the night behind the trees. I would love to tell you I went back, and the thermos wasn't there, and it had all been some clever trap my brain set so I could feel special. I would love to tell you the opposite, that I found a note inside that said something profound. I didn't. It was just coffee that tasted like warmth in a place that doesn't hand that out. It hasn't happened exactly like that again. Different weather, different miles, different voices on different nights. The road has a bag of tricks, and it doesn't show you the same one twice back to back. Because what's the point of that? I've heard my dad say my name in the CB, even though he's been gone a long time. I've seen flares where there were 4, and a feeling like there were 5. I've felt knocking when there's nothing to knock. I've had my mirrors fill with lights, and then empty like no one was ever behind me. And once I saw a motel where there isn't one, with a sign lit up and a vacancy, even though every sensible person around me was parked and sleeping because no one wants to be a headline. I didn't take the exit that time either. I counted to 8 and made it 10 just in case. Every now and then, if I'm eastbound and the weather is thinking too hard, I'll catch a flash of the Summit 17 sign where it shouldn't be. It's not always the same exit. Sometimes it's a little before a rest area. Sometimes it's where there's supposed to be nothing but sagebrush and a wind farm. It's a private joke the road plays, I guess. I don't always stop, but sometimes I do. I like a sandwich that tastes like the end of a long day. If you're reading this and you drive, here's what I tell the rookies when they ask me about winter. It's not just the chains and the tires and the speed. It's not just the hours and the plows. It's learning the rules nobody writes down. 8 trucks is safe. Bridges are not for stopping. If you hear someone say your name in a voice that sounds like family on the radio or just inside your ear, don't talk back. Don't give it a hook to grab you with. Say driver, like you're talking to the idea of yourself instead of yourself. And if you see flares, count every damn one. Be the jerk who counts out loud if you have to. 4 is a story trying to be 5. 5 is someone you can help if the world's got a mood for mercy. You don't have to believe any of this. It sounds like the kind of thing guys make up to make the miles shorter. That's fine. I don't need you to. The road will show you what it wants when it wants. Some nights it minds its business. Some nights it tells you your business isn't important. You do your checks in the morning. You thump your tires and you watch your lights in the reflection off the guy in front of you. And you pull your 5th wheel pin. And you make your coffee. And you look at the sky. You don't let a voice you didn't ask for. Pick your exit. Every time I head into a white that looks like it wants to erase me, I hear bells. Not loud. Just a little tink-tink from a door I'm not near anymore. I think about a napkin holder with black Sharpie rules. I picture a thermos getting dented 100 times and still doing its job. I count to 8 out loud. If my radio pops and the wind tries my name on to see if it fits, I turn it down and aim for the next windbreak and steer by the posts on my right. The last trip I took through there, late February, the wind had calmed down, and the sky was a taste of what spring might be if it remembered how. The snow fences were old and tired, and so was I. I didn't plan to stop. I didn't need to. But I saw the sign anyway. Summit 17. The coffee cup glowed like a little moon. I laughed in spite of myself and shook my head and kept going, because if you stop every time a place wants to see you, you'll never deliver on time again. I passed the exit. In my mirror for a second, I saw someone standing in the station door. Could have been a reflection. Could have been my brain filling in a blank. She looked like a woman with gray hair and a knot and a towel over her shoulder, like she had just finished doing something with a griddle. She raised her hand in a salute that was not a wave. I lifted my hand off the wheel for one beat and put it back. The CB cracked. Not a voice. Just that little static someone makes when they're about to talk and don't. Then, clear, the calm voice of a trooper somewhere down the road telling us westbound was open, chain law lifted, watch for frost in shaded areas. The ordinary holy message of someone doing their job right. I don't know what the road remembers. I don't know what we leave on it that it wants to keep. I try to leave as little as I can. Rubber, fuel, breath on glass. I don't stop on bridges. I stay in the group when there is one. When there isn't, I make myself into my own convoy with the rules I wrote down in my head that first night, and the ones I learned since. Sometimes late, the knocking still comes. Not often, not always in weather. 2 taps, patient, from the passenger side. I don't look. I don't answer. I count to 8 and listen to my engine and let the road be the road. It's not my friend. It's not my enemy. It's something big that lets me cross its back because I have somewhere to be and because I behave. If there's a woman somewhere pouring coffee for idiots like me when the wind is punching, I hope she knows I'm trying. I keep the shiny side up. I keep the rules. I keep rolling.